Hi people, it's Archivist here with another vlog video, and today I'm going to be talking about 3 topics that are loosely related to Watch Dogs. So the first thing I want to talk about is the visual downgrade that was applied to Watch Dogs over its very long development cycle. And first of all, I will say this though, I'm not surprised it did suffer a visual downgrade, because when I first saw that 2012 E3 gameplay trailer, I couldn't believe it could possibly turn out that good. I mean, if you look at the amount of detail and dynamic lighting, sure that could work for a linear game, but for an open world game, no way. The frame rate would be dead. I'm not surprised it suffered a downgrade. However, keeping that in mind, is it not unreasonable to assume that perhaps a developer may actually do this again at the E3 that's coming up? So if we see a new IP and they want to show it in its best light, you know, really kick up a bit of buzz, I mean, that's the important thing, right? Watch Dogs made a huge impact. I wonder if Watch Dogs would have made the same impact if they'd have shown legitimate footage. Sure, there's been controversy around it, but there's also been free press around it. And I believe Watch Dogs has done very well for Ubisoft. It's been incredibly successful. So they've got every reason to try this again if they can. So my advice to anyone who's watching E3, as I will be, is to be careful with pre-orders, at least spontaneous pre-orders, right? If they say, and now this game, be it Assassin's Creed Unity, are accepting pre-orders now, be mindful. If they show us a gameplay trailer that just looks too good to be true, and in fact, I think Assassin's Creed Unity will be very easy to judge, because if the graphics look too much better than Black Flag, say they're showing it on PlayStation 4, for example, us PlayStation 4 users will know what our console is capable of. So if it's way too outside of that, then chances are there may be a bit of technical wizardry behind the scenes that won't apply to the final product. I would say be careful. Don't rush into pre-orders, especially when we've got digital distribution now. So the original problem with pre-ordering, well, with buying a game conventionally, was that, well, maybe it's going to be sold out. That isn't the case anymore. The only real reason to pre-order these days is to get the extra incentives like a bonus edition or limited edition, what have you. So yes, to summarise my thoughts here, do not spontaneously pre-order anything you see at E3. Just be mindful. Get excited by all means. There's no danger in getting excited, but there's no reason to bet, especially when you'll be the only loser if it fails. Moving on though, more closely to Watch Dogs. Although Watch Dogs has definitely, and this isn't regarding the graphics anymore, this is regarding the PC specific technical issues, so this doesn't really apply if you're playing the game on the PlayStation 4, but regardless, I've been playing Watch Dogs for going on a full 4 days now, and it's an excellent game, but I cannot deny my initial impressions of the game were slightly tarnished by the technical issues. Now, I found that solving the technical issues meant having to reduce texture detail. For some reason, reducing anything else wouldn't get rid of the specific stuttering problem I had. I've noticed that a lot of people were suffering from this problem as well. I went around lots of forums to be told that, because it's natural to go to the visual presets and say, if it's stuttering now, maybe I should put it on high. Still stuttering. Put it on medium, still stuttering. Low, still stuttering. Something's not right here. So it's actually under display, and you have to go to texture detail and change it to medium. Normally it's actually grayed out, and you have to quit the game and go into the main menu system and do it there. And I finally realised it. And when I did this and thereby removed the stuttering effect, my experience of the game greatly improved. And it's weird how much the frame rate, be it, I mean, it wasn't, as I say, it wasn't the fact it was low, it was the fact it was stuttering. So every, say, 5 seconds while I was driving, it would pause for a microsecond. I'm not even being finicky, it was getting so annoying. It really ruined my driving experience. I don't particularly rate the handling in Watch Dogs either anyway, so every time I had to get in the car, I just thought, oh god, it's going to start doing it again. So I was so glad to get rid of that. So what I'm essentially saying here is, it's so important to get the technical side of your game right, because it doesn't matter how good it is fundamentally. If it's got problems, people just can't experience it the way you intended. And finally, I was thinking about what really makes an open world game work, because for the longest time, Grand Theft Auto, San Andreas, GTA 4 and GTA 5 for the longest time were my favourite open world games, because they felt very alive, very real, very interactive. Games like, shall we say, The Amazing Spider-Man 2, excellent game in its own right, but the open world felt artificial. You know, I mean, they're all artificial, but it felt very artificial. You couldn't really interact with the city. Every time you went to fight a crime, it had to do this stupid interlude moment that I didn't mention before but actually really grew to annoy me. But these Grand Theft Auto games, they really felt as if you were connected to the world, you belonged in it. There were consequences to everything you did. Most of what you did made a difference. And for the first time, I feel Watch Dogs has actually managed to replicate that in some way. There's a few ways that the game does this. And actually, most of these ways are very small ways. Okay, the first thing is you can do anything you want. Now, I'm not saying the ability to shoot civilians in the face is a good thing, but that basic principle of being able to do anything you want, there will be consequences, but the game isn't restraining you, say, by putting up a barrier. It doesn't say, oh, you can't pull the trigger when you aim at a civilian. It says the cops will come after you. That's a much better way of punishing you. So it makes you feel like you can do things to the world, and there'll be real world consequences, as opposed to you'll just get a game over. It will say, Aiden didn't do this, you must stop. If you damage 3 more civilians, you will quit out. You know, like, that's something I never really liked about the Assassin's Creed games. Also, another thing, and this is very subtle thing, but I think it's a great thing to do in an open world game. If you have shops, rather than having like a loading portal, so say you walk up to the door and you press the Y, triangle button, what have you, and you teleport in, I think it's so much more effective to just be able to walk through the door, because it's like it's connected to the world. It's not some separate subsystem that you have to enter. It's part of the world. In fact, pretty much everywhere in Watch Dogs can just be accessed freely. There are no loading times, unless of course you're doing free travel, but then again, how could they not put loading times when you're doing a fast travel? But aside from that, you can go anywhere in the game without any loading times. I'm trying to think off the top of my head a mission where that happened, but I really can't, unless you are being transferred from one area to another because of story reasons. But you could enter any building, any structure you wanted without a teleport, and it's a very subtle thing, but it's also very effective. It sounds simple, but another thing that makes an open world game work is quite simply being able to get in cars. Yeah, it's a simple thing, but games like Infamous Second Son, there were cars in the game, but they were really just there to jump off of. You couldn't get inside them and drive them. It's a small thing, but it makes the world feel a lot more interactive. And also being able to destroy things. You can't knock down buildings in Watch Dogs, but you can destroy quite a lot. Say you can use your hacking to destroy a terminal or a transformer. That's pretty good. In fact, that's almost something that's unique to Watch Dogs, your ability to hack into the city systems and profile all the different people who walk around the city. That's very good as well, because it gives you a brief background on them. And that was something I talked about in my top 5, the moral responsibility. Sure, you could say, well, it doesn't matter because they're not real people, but if you really want to immerse yourself into the experience and you say, I need to get some money fast, or well, maybe I should steal from this person's bank account, but oh no, they have a disease, you think, ooh, would I actually do this in real life? If you're really desperate for the money to, you want to get a gun upgrade, you probably don't care. But if you're someone who's kind of role-playing Watch Dogs, that really makes an impact. I can imagine people who do that with games will really like Watch Dogs, actually. And the final thing that makes an open world game work that Watch Dogs does very well is small details in areas, and also a lot of diversity in those small areas. So something that GTA 4 suffered from that GTA 5 improved upon was the little alleyways or the little details. So in GTA 4 there were lots of clone alleyways where you walked down and it was exactly the same. Maybe there were a few bins here or there, but essentially the same thing. But in GTA 5 they did in certain areas make a special effort to make it seem different, and especially the layout, because Los Santos was far more dynamic in terms of its route layout than Liberty City was. And I think Chicago, it's kind of a weird in-between of the two, because the outskirt districts have a lot of dynamism in terms of their routes, but Chicago, in terms of the inner city, is a little linear. But then again, it is a city, so it can be forgiven for that. So yes, I would say overall Watch Dogs does an impeccable job of creating a believable, immersive, and very highly interactive open world. But if you would like to challenge me on that, of course, comment below. So I'll wrap up this Watch Dogs themed vlog for today. As always, people, thanks very much for watching, and see you next time.